Hello, I'm David Dubato, and you're watching the No Delusion Zone for Sunday, July 26th, 2026. Well, recently, President Zelensky, Ukrainian President Zelensky, made what many people, including myself, are saying was the right decision. After the disaster a week or so ago, when he dismissed the Minister of Defense, Fedorov, and after the massive street demonstrations that ensued after the dismissal of Fedorov, and much gnashing of teeth, many consultations between Zelensky and his, at the time, current chief of staff, commander in chief, rather, of the Ukrainian armed forces, Alexander Syrski. Finally, President Zelensky made the decision that he was going to dismiss Syrski and replace him with the former chief of staff of the Azov brigade, very well known, very respected, heroic brigade, which took place in the defense of Mariupol at the beginning of the full-scale invasion. He made the decision to replace Syrski with the former chief of staff of the Azov brigade by the name of Mikhailo Drapatyi. Another hero of Ukraine, another very popular individual with the Ukrainian public in general, and specifically very popular and well respected within the Ukrainian military. So, my opinion, and those of many others that follow this, was that Zelensky made a very good decision in appointing Drapatyi. The question I have is, why did it take so long? Why did he have to go through the gut-wrenching issue, which triggered all these demonstrations, hand-wringing, international condemnation, not just condemnation within Ukraine itself, over dismissing Fedorov and keeping Syrski on board? And, to take nothing away from Syrski, former commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian military, Syrski, he was not the right man for the job, the right man in the right time, in the right place, although he is and will remain a hero of Ukraine. After all, he was responsible for commanding the defense of Kyiv back in February of 2022. He was there. He was in charge. He defended Ukraine and destroyed the Russian convoys that were approaching Kyiv from several different directions. So he's no slouch. He is a hero, and he's extremely loyal to Ukraine, although he was a Soviet-trained military officer. He was trained in the style of the Soviet Union, which is a hierarchical command structure where all the orders come from way above, and junior subordinate officers are not expected to be innovative and come up with their own conclusions, to take in all the available information on the field, on the battlefield, at the front, and then make an on the spot decision. No, they had to wait, no matter how glaring the problem was or how severe the problem was on the front. They had to wait for orders from the top. That was the type of centralized command structure that Syrski was trained in, and from what I understand, pretty much forced on the Ukrainian army, and grudgingly gave way slowly after the full-scale invasion to a more decentralized command structure, after many of the Ukrainian officers and non-commissioned officers went to training with NATO countries, who were then trained before that by the American military, which has a very decentralized command structure. They give a lot of responsibility to junior officers, and even more importantly, to non-commissioned officers. Those are the sergeants, more or less. That doesn't happen in the Soviet military. And I understand it didn't happen enough in the Ukrainian military prior to the first days or even months of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. That started to change with NATO training. But again, from what I understand and from the people I talked to, Syrski was not all that enraptured with that type of decentralized command structure. So again, why, with all the innovations that have been happening with the Ukrainian military on every front, but especially in technological innovations, why President Zelensky made a decision to fire, essentially, the defense minister, who was almost single-handedly, let's face it, responsible for the drone warfare, the incredibly successful drone warfare that Ukraine has embarked on over the last several months. He was there only 6 months, and in those 6 months, he made dramatic changes in the way that Ukraine fights war, and has taken it to the Russians from just surviving on the front and fending off relentless Russian charges and advances to sending drones over 2,000 kilometers inside of Russia and just blasting their oil refineries and military distribution centers to bits, to smithereens, and greatly affecting their ability to wage war, to resupply their armed forces, and recently to almost not bankrupt the country, but to cause incredible economic hardships on the Russian people themselves, which is going to be one of the ways that this war may be forced to a conclusion, when the Russian people en masse decides that economically it's not worth it for them to continue. They're never going to say, oh, those poor Ukrainians, we feel so bad. Now we're experiencing what they did. No, it's not going to happen. At least not in any great numbers. But if they feel it in their pocketbook, if their businesses, their small businesses go down the drain because wild berries, warehouses are destroyed, so their entire inventory goes up in flames, and they have to lay off all of their employees, they have to close their businesses, and they can't make their own mortgage payments or rent, then they're going to start to realize maybe this war, this special military operation isn't the best thing since sliced bread. Maybe our czar, excuse me, maybe our czar, our king, is not all wise, and that we shouldn't listen to everything he says. That's a long way off, if it happens at all. But maybe this is the beginning of it. And to circle back, a large part of that is due to Fedorov, the fired, dismissed Minister of Defense, Fedorov. Now, to his credit, President Zelensky recently offered Fedorov a new position as Deputy Prime Minister for Military Innovation, where Zelensky says he would be responsible for overseeing all new technologies, the development and implementation of new technologies in the Ukrainian military. But Fedorov refused, saying pretty much that that may be true, and he appreciates the president's offer, but it's not the same as being the defense minister. He would still have to go through whoever the defense minister is in order to get things done. It wouldn't be a direct commander type of a position as the defense minister, which was the reason he was able to do so much in such a short period of time. So he said, thanks, but no thanks. So it remains to be seen what that's going to be all about, whether or not President Zelensky eventually retreats on that decision as well and reappoints Fedorov as the Minister of Defense, which is what the Ukrainian people are still clamoring for, are still protesting in the streets for Zelensky to do. And I think that would be an incredibly wise decision. A lot of people are saying, well, he's already backtracked a little bit. And if he does that, if he reappoints Fedorov as defense minister, it's going to be a sign of weakness. I disagree, totally disagree. That would be the sign that democracy works. These are so far very peaceful demonstrations. They're very large, they're big, but they're peaceful. And guess what? That's what happens or should happen in a democracy. The people should be able to voice their opinion when they disagree with their leaders, up to and including their president, the chief executive of their country. They should be able to demonstrate peacefully in the street and let their feelings and opinions be known. And that's what Ukrainians have done since their new nation was formed in 1991. They've done it for the last 20 years, very loudly, but peacefully. Well, sometimes not so peacefully, but That's another issue. But for the most part, peacefully. And President Zelensky is acting as, I believe, a president in a democracy should act. He made a decision. The people let their voices be heard. The president listened to the people and readjusted. He looked at what they said. He looked at what he did. He looked at what's best for his country, and he did an about face. He fired the former commander in chief Syrski, and he replaced him with a very popular and very competent individual, former chief of staff of the Azov Brigade, Drapatyi. Hats off, kudos to President Zelensky. I still think he should reappoint Minister Fedorov as the Minister of Defense. Whether or not that happens, I don't know. Let me know what you think about this. First of all, should Fedorov have been fired by Zelensky? Since he was, should he have waited so long to make a decision about the commander-in-chief, Syrski? Should he have been fired instead, or at least should he have been replaced immediately after Fedorov was replaced and after so many large street demonstrations? Do you still support President Zelensky? Let me know. Let me know. Send in some comments, and I will try to, I will respond to them in the next podcast if you have any questions or comments, as I said. And that's all for today. So, you folks, as I always tell you, till next time, you take care, stay safe, and stay sane.